Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, your home for Pittsburgh Penguins news and analysis. It's a Monday, so we're going to get into our Pittsburgh Penguins Power Rankings for the first time in just over a month. But before that, a quick review of what happened over the weekend. Penguins go 1-1 to kick off their season-long 7-game road trip with a win over the Buffalo Sabres, a win in which Alex Nedeljkovic stole the show. I'm sure he's going to be somebody we talk about later in this episode. He scores a goal and an assist, becoming the first goaltender in NHL history to do so, en route to, of course, the Penguins' first win on this road trip. They followed it up on the second half of a back-to-back going into Washington, D.C., and just getting absolutely smothered by the Washington Capitals. The Caps got a lead early in the game off of a Jacob Chychrun shot, and they just continued to play their game against the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Pens had a shot late, but as has happened most of the time over the last couple of weeks, the penalty kill kind of threw it all away, giving up a goal in the waning minutes of that one, which made it 3-1 in favor of the Caps, and they tacked on an empty net goal there to close things out. The Pens are going to look to bounce back tonight as they take on the LA Kings as part one of their 5-part Western Coast swing of this 7-game road trip. We'll see if they can get a victory over the Kings later this evening. But let's go over to the power rankings. Got a couple honorable mentions before I get to my top 5. First and foremost, let's go Owen Pickering. This guy has been very good since making his NHL debut, and he's been asked to do a lot of different things. He's been asked to penalty kill. He's been asked to be a top pairing guy. He's been asked to be a bottom pairing guy. He's now been asked to play on his off wing at certain points, and it seems like he just kind of takes whatever the Pens coaching staff asks him in stride and, well, performs pretty well in any situation that he's placed in. I've liked what I've seen out of the 20-year-old rookie, and I'm excited to see him continue to build. But as of right now, that puts him in the honorable mention category. Somebody that has been in the top 5 every single time that I've done these lists, but he's cooled off a bit. Then he spent some time on the injured list, and since coming back, he has 1 assist in 3 games played. That's Evgeni Malkin. For the most part this year, Evgeni Malkin has been what you can expect from a 38-year-old second-line center. He's been really good at points, and then he's also faded to the back at points. He's just faded a little bit too far back, and the injury on top of that has him drop out of the top 5 as of right now. He is an honorable mention, so the list is 2, Owen Pickering and Evgeni Malkin, both honorable mentions. Let's get to the top 5, starting with a goaltender that I mentioned already in this episode. What a week for Alex Nedeljkovic. Handed the opportunity to be the Penguins' #1 goaltender with the demotion of Tristan Jarry. He takes it in stride, and, well, he has 2 wins now, sandwiching a horrible loss whenever he went out and got shelled by the Ottawa Senators. But I think the same could be said for the rest of the team. But what has Nedeljkovic done before and after that? Just 2 40-plus save performances and 2 of the only wins the Penguins have had over the last handful of weeks. So Nedeljkovic had 40 saves on 43 shots against the Edmonton Oilers last week, and then 40 saves on 42 shots in Buffalo on Friday. And like I mentioned, tack on becoming the first goaltender to ever in the history of the NHL have a goal and an assist in the same game. That's going to be enough to get you onto this list, and that is enough to get Alex Nedeljkovic to number 5 on the Penguins Power Rankings. At number 4, this guy just cannot stop scoring. 6 goals in his last 9 games. He is leading the Penguins in goal scoring by an absolute landslide. He's on pace for a career high in 39 goals this season and on pace for his second highest power play goal total with 9 on the season. The number 4 player on the Pittsburgh Penguins right now, he's up in the corner right now, right above my shoulder, and that is Rickard Rakell. Like I mentioned, this guy is putting the puck in the back of the net at a very, very high pace. His shot is 100% on its game right now, and I'd say he is an integral part to the Pittsburgh Penguins' opportunity, if there is one, to bounce back in the NHL standings. Their homestand over the last couple of weeks, matched with the fact that they are 1-1 and not 2-0 on this road trip so far, it has the Penguins in a rough spot in the standings. But if they're going to climb back, if they're going to find their way back into contention, large part of it's going to be due to Rickard Rakell and his ability to light the lamp at what seems to be an easy pace for the guy who was snubbed off of Team Sweden for the Four Nations faceoff. So Rickard Rakell, he goes at number 4. At number 3, I have not made a habit of putting defensemen on this list. And I think whenever you look at the performance of the Penguins defensemen throughout most of the season, you'd probably agree with me. However, Erik Karlsson has found his game playing next to Matt Grzelcyk. They've played together every game pretty much for the last 16 games, with the exception of, I believe, the first game of this road trip. Karlsson played mostly with Owen Pickering because of the illness suffered by Chris Letang. But for the most part, over the last 16 games, Karlsson and Matt Grzelcyk have played on the same pairing together, combining for 2.3 expected goals against per 60, which is hands down the best for Erik Karlsson with anybody that he's played with for a minimum of at least 60 minutes since he joined the Pittsburgh Penguins, not just this season, but last season as well. So defensively, it's working out. Offensively, it is working out, as Erik Karlsson has 13 points in his past 16 games, which is the best scoring stretch that he's had this season. He had a couple of scoring stretches that were a little bit better last season, including the first 17 games that he had as a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins, but he's starting to find a rhythm. He's starting to find his game. He's starting to kind of move the puck with a little bit more confidence. And part of that is just the faith and the trust that he has in Matt Grzelcyk. You could have asked me multiple times before this stretch, did I think Erik Karlsson and Matt Grzelcyk was going to be a pairing that worked together? I would have told you no. And I would have been wrong, because for some reason, those two are just fitting well together right now. And the Pittsburgh Penguins, well, they're going to run with that as long as they possibly can. That way they can move Marcus Pettersson with the Chris Letang, and they can have a pretty solid young defense pairing on the third pair with Owen Pickering and P.O. Joseph, if Joseph comes back after missing Saturday's game due to an illness. But Erik Karlsson, nonetheless, is one of the few defensemen that I put on my power rankings this year. He clocks in at number 3. At number 2, and a slight shakeup since the last time I did this, he has 23 points in his last 20 games, so he's playing very well, but only 4 goals in that time. And that's Sidney Crosby. We've said on multiple occasions that it is a little concerning that Sidney Crosby has not been able to light the lamp this season really at all. Now, a lot of that's been brushed under the rug because he's still over a point per game player. He has 49 points in 48 games this season. He still played in every single game, but the fact is, even with Bryan Rust scoring a lot, even with Rickard Rakell scoring a lot, even with Erik Karlsson starting to play much better, and he's playing a lot of ice time with Sidney Crosby, it's still a little strange that Crosby could be, say, tied for the team lead in shots on goal with 56 over the last 20 games, and yet still only registering 4 goals. Something's off with Sidney Crosby and his goal-scoring ability. He's still playing well. He's still facilitating at a very high level, but the goal-scoring has taken a significant step back this season. I mean, last year, he was a 40-plus goal scorer, and I've said on multiple occasions, hey, he is whatever the Penguins need him to be on most occasions. But this year, it's going to another level. He hasn't been able to score goals, and because of that, I bump him from number 1 to number 2 on my power rankings list. That's, again, very small because he still has a huge impact. He's still leading the Penguins in scoring. He is still kind of the driving force behind that top line that has been so dominant over the last handful of games. But I'd still like to see him score a little bit more. He looked a little off in Washington, so hopefully heading to the Southwest and that heat defrosts his scoring chops, and he's able to start lighting the lamp again and finding the back of the net. But for right now, he's going to be at number 2 on this list. And at number 1, I've mentioned him once before. I think I've mentioned him twice before on the show already. For the first time this season, Bryan Rust is at number 1 on my power rankings list. Overall, points per game in his last 15 games is 16 points. He has been absolutely on fire, currently riding a 5-game point streak, including a 3-game goal streak as well. He just looks poised in every facet of the game. He's feeding it as well as he's finishing it, which is not something you can say very often about Bryan Rust, but the one thing I will say is he's eaten way too many shorthanded minutes. I'd love to see them go more towards, I don't know, maybe a Blake Lizotte on the penalty kill more, go towards maybe a Drew O'Connor on the penalty kill more. It just feels like they are relying too heavily on Bryan Rust and Nedeljkovic on that penalty kill. And right now it's starting to bite them in the butt. I already mentioned at the beginning of the show that it hurt them in Washington. It's hurt them, I think, 4 times in 2025 already, where the power play has given up a huge goal that's either tying or a go-ahead late in the third period of play. So the Pens need to kind of fix their penalty kill. Part of that might be taking a step back with guys like a Nedeljkovic, guys like a Bryan Rust. But I think outside of penalty kill, Bryan Rust has been everything you want from a top-line winger. Like I said, he's feeding it as well as he's finishing it. 5-game point streak, 3-game goal streak, and over a point per game over his last 15 with 16 points. The guy is on absolute fire, and there's a good chance. Right now he has 37 points in 41 games played. There's a good chance that he finishes with over a point per game, which is not something that we get to typically say about Bryan Rust. So there's the top 5 for this week. Alex Nedeljkovic jumps up to number 5. Rickard Rakell drops down a couple spots since the last time we did this to number 4. Erik Karlsson off the bench into the top 5 at number 3. Sidney Crosby drops down 1 simply because of his goal scoring. He goes to number 2 on this list. And then Bryan Rust at number 1 overall, 1.1 for the Pittsburgh Penguins. We'll have to wait and see if this changes between this and next week. Like I mentioned, depends on a very important 7-game, so long, 7-game road trip. We'll see if they can get back to the winning ways against the Los Angeles Kings later tonight. But that's going to do it for this episode of The Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this one. Remember, you can find us on YouTube at Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to this video, or you can catch us anywhere you get your podcast from. We'll see you guys next time.